15 minutes ago, a simple moment turned into a storm of emotions that shook the internet. There was no official announcement, no major media cameras, just one fleeting moment, yet enough to leave millions of fans breathless. And as the news spread, everything changed. In a corner of the airport usually bustling with meaningless activity, today felt different. The initially casual atmosphere was suddenly filled with whispers, surprised glances, and hastily picked up phones. Someone saw something unexpected, something too special to ignore. There stood two familiar figures. There was no deliberate fanfare, no dramatic gestures. That was precisely what made this moment feel so real and so profound. They seemed like two people simply wanting to share one last moment before a brief separation. Witnesses described the presence as calm, yet the aura between them was indescribable. It was as if the world around them had dimmed, leaving only quiet conversations and meaningful glances. There were no loud words, just a silence that spoke louder than anything else. When the news began spreading on social media, the reaction came like a tidal wave. Within minutes, blurry photos and short video clips went viral. Fans from all over the world struggled to comprehend what they had just seen. Many were in disbelief. Is this true? Was the recurring question. But as more evidence emerged, it became increasingly difficult to deny the fact that the moment actually happened. Some fans expressed emotion. They saw not just two public figures, but a connection that felt genuine and caring. Something as simple as seeing them off at the airport suddenly took on a much greater meaning. Others drew attention to small details, the way they walked side by side, the way one of them occasionally glanced over, making sure the other was okay. Small details that would normally be overlooked became the focus of attention this time. On the other hand, speculation arose. What did this moment mean? Was it just a coincidence? Or was there something deeper behind it? The internet was filled with theories, analyses, and even reconstructions of events based on limited visual fragments. But amidst all the noise, one thing that couldn't be denied was the emotion felt by fans. Many said they were touched, even moved to tears, by this brief interaction. Some commented that the moment felt like a scene from a drama, too beautiful to be true, but that's precisely what made it so precious. It wasn't staged, it wasn't orchestrated, it just happened naturally. What made the situation even more compelling was how the two individuals seemed oblivious to the profound impact they were making. To them, it might have been just another goodbye, but to the outside world, it was something extraordinary. Amidst the bustle of the airport, there was one spot that felt warmer than the others. A small space where attention, care, and perhaps an inexplicable feeling met. Some witnesses said that before they parted, there was a brief pause. A moment of silence that felt longer than usual, as if the two wanted to immortalize that moment in their memories. Then the goodbye happened. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't overdone. It was simple. But that simplicity was what made it feel so real and touching. After that, everything returned to normal. People walked around, the airport announcements rang out again, and the world seemed to resume its rhythm. But for those watching, something had changed. The internet was still buzzing. Every second, thousands of new comments, thousands of posts trying to capture the essence of the moment. Everyone wanted to be a part of the story. Some fans even said that it wasn't just about two people, but about the feelings they represented, about connection, about presence, about the meaning of a sincere goodbye. And perhaps that's why this moment was so powerful, because beneath all the spotlight and fame, all that was visible was two people who cared for each other. Now, the question was no longer whether the incident was real. The question was, how could this simple moment touch so many hearts? Perhaps the answer lies in the small things we often overlook. A simple act, done sincerely, can have a far greater impact than we imagine. And 15 minutes ago, the world was reminded of that. It didn't take long for that moment to become symbolic. Not just a fleeting moment at the airport, but a fragment of a story that felt vivid in the minds of fans. Many began replaying the video over and over again, trying to capture expressions they might have missed at first glance. With each replay, a new detail was discovered. A faint smile, a barely perceptible hand gesture, or a deliberately slowed pace. All of it became the subject of endless discussion, as if every second held a hidden meaning. Some fans even began comparing this moment to previous memories. They connected the dots, trying to build a larger narrative. And the more they delved, the deeper the emotions became. On the other hand, others chose not to analyze it too deeply. For them, the moment was beautiful enough as it was. No need for theories, no assumptions, just to feel it, just to treasure it as a sweet memory that came unexpectedly. But it's precisely these differing perspectives that make this story so vivid. Everyone sees it from a different perspective, but they all agree on one thing. There's something special there. As time passes, that moment doesn't fade. On the contrary, it grows stronger, more lingering. Like a recurring echo, it touches the hearts of all who hear it. Even those who weren't initially following the story become interested. Curiosity leads them to see for themselves, and without realizing it, they're swept along by the same emotional current. And amidst it all, one thing becomes clear: that sometimes the most memorable aren't the grand, carefully planned events, but the small, spontaneous moments. A brief encounter, a simple goodbye, yet they leave such a lasting impression. It's as if time itself had stopped to capture it. As night falls, the conversation about that moment doesn't subside. In fact, in the quieter atmosphere, the emotions grow stronger. Many revisit the same post, reread the comments, and relive the inexplicable thrill they felt when they first saw it. There's something about the silence after that goodbye that lingers. It's not just about who leaves and who stays, but about the empty space left behind, a space filled with unspoken feelings. Some fans began writing their reflections, no longer just spontaneous reactions. The words that emerged felt deeper, more honest. They spoke about the meaning of someone's presence, about how a small gesture can mean so much. Among all this, there were also those who felt this moment was a reminder that in a world full of fast-paced, distraction-filled people, there are still relationships that unfold quietly, without needing to be announced, without needing to be proven to anyone. And perhaps that's precisely why this moment feels so rare. It came without warning, without a script, without the goal of going viral. Yet, it's precisely that unintentionality that makes it so authentic. Time has passed, but the shadow of that event still lingers in the minds of many. Like the final scene in a story that's not quite finished, leaving room for anyone to interpret it in their own way. Ultimately, it might not be about what actually happened at that airport, but it's about how that moment made people feel connected, touched, and for a moment believing that simple things can still have extraordinary meaning.